In this video, we are going to be covering a new book from Catalyst Games, named A Question of Survival. Written by Brian Young, this novel is documenting part of the new Ilclan era. This review will contain spoilers, but not all of them, and I will notify people when the spoilers start. The other recent review I covered was for Redemption Rights, and these two novels read very differently, and their plots are laid out differently, and how they are told feels different. Very different, but this is by no means bad, but good. A Question of Survival really documents two things, which is how the Jade Falcons are going to be able to survive the coming storm around them, as isolated and alone as they are, and how Clan Ghostbear will plunge headfirst into the new sourcebook coming out later this year. Dominions Divided. I will say that this does set both of those things up brilliantly and believably. This is the first novel I've read by Brian Young, and I wasn't sure what to expect going into it. I thought he laid out the characters within it fantastically, and I actually struggled to really see who was the true primary protagonist, as the focus shifts between a multitude of characters throughout who are perspective characters. All of them are written well and have meaningful stories, even if all of them don't have growth. I will say that while this story does feel timeless, it does feel like some of it is very much tied into current day events. I don't want to delve too deeply into this subject, but anyone who reads it will likely get that sensation in regards to what has happened inside of the Ghostbear Dominion. So without further delay, let's begin looking into the characters. Star Colonel Emilio Hall was a great character. I really enjoyed the presentation of who he was, especially near the start of the book. I would argue he is a generally very wise, compassionate man, and someone who respects honor and tradition. To give away one scene near the beginning, he's endearing in how much he trusts the unified political system and culture of the Ghostbears, and takes incredible pride in the day of voting taking place, regardless of the controversy around it. He wears his best dress uniform to it even. Overall, I feel extremely invested in his character, both in his highs and his lows. Khan Ji Christu, the newly crowned Khan of the Jade Falcons. He finds himself in a complete mess to deal with. Much of his journey is trying to figure out a way out of the nearly impossible circumstances he finds himself in. Enemies on all sides, treachery and treason among some of his fellow Falcons, and trying to heal at least some of the wounds Malvina left behind. Overall, I really loved his character, and I found him to be amusing to say the least. He plays his hand well, and is an extremely adaptive leader, both militarily and politically. He even seems to adapt on the fly to change the Falcons when needed to guarantee their survival. Surviving is everything, and it definitely plays into the book. Cadet Alexis took a while to grow on me, but at the end I felt very heavily invested in her story. A Ghostbear cub working towards being a Mechwarrior, she is a freebirth and suffers some degree for it. Still, she is skilled and is trying to find emotional stability in her life, trying to take comfort in Clan Ghostbear's family, but is often let down by it. Her main friends are Thomasin and Sophie. Star Commander Dawn is an interesting character. Burned by the Falcons earlier on, and surviving because of it, she receives the opportunity to make something of herself throughout, and always tries to rise to the occasion. I found her to be an interesting read, especially in how she works on new tactics with the Falcons in the book. I also find that she's more compassionate than one might believe at first glance as well, so I found her character endearing. There are a list of minor characters as well who do have their own journeys, and they are not as significant, but I am going to talk about them a little bit here. Star Captain Quinn is a recently promoted Mechwarrior. GE's second-in-command seems destined to become Saucon even according to GE. Star Captain Allison Rand, the de facto second-in-command of Emilio Hall, whose role grows near the end of the story, but she isn't quite as fleshed out as the primary character. Star Captain Ivankova, Cadet Thompson, Sophie, and Daniel are obviously all minor characters as well. There are a few others as well, such as Natalia and Holstein from the Jade Falcons, as well as the last loyal, significant merchant, Jodine, with her vault ship Gamma. Before going into the spoilers portion, I do recommend this book strongly, especially if you want insight into what's coming up in the Ilclan era, and if you just want to read what I think is an engaging story. I will reiterate one more time, the spoilers are about to begin, and I do recommend the book. If you do not want this book spoiled, now is the time to leave. There is going to be a link to getting the book in the description below. It is not affiliated with me, it is the link that they provide through Catalyst. If you really want to get this book and you want to find out what happens, go through that link. It is worth going through. It is going to be much better than listening to my review. It is 400 pages of fun. If you do not have time to read it and you want to find out what happens, please feel free to stay with us. But the spoilers are starting, and I do recommend the book. As a disclaimer, I am in no way affiliated with Catalyst Game Labs for this review, and my copy was purchased by myself. I received no advance copy, or free copy, or any incentive around this product to review it, or anything else. This is purely my opinion. So what is there to say? The book starts with Dahlia Becker and Rory Jorgensen going to Terra to meet with the Ilclan, Alaric Ward. They recognize him as the Ilclan of the Ilclan, but don't commit to joining the Star League, pointing out that the vote must be held in the Dominion. This somewhat displeases Alaric. Alaric himself does a series of things to subtly antagonize them, as well as to show subtle threats. He also comes off as a disingenuous psychopath, and thankfully Becker and Saucon Jorgensen seem to notice this, even as they are being mutually wooed by him. It also appears that Alaric needs the Ghost Bears to be his enforcers, or at the very least a major component in his army, because he is banking on them joining the Star League in order to accelerate his rule across the Inner Sphere. Setting aside my personal biases of how I feel Alaric is a monster, and how I'm not particularly interested in seeing the Star League return, he is written very well in this story, and his role at the end of it is a masterstroke in narcissism, evil, and a well-thought-out plot. After this, we are introduced to Star Colonel Emilio Hall, who is in the midst of voting. Even as he's happy to do so, and is happy to accept the results of any election, he is surrounded by people tearing themselves apart over the politics around the vote, and what it means. Everyone is becoming tribal and divisive around it, and it's breaking apart the social cohesion he's become accustomed to. While this fades into the background somewhat, through the story, the seeds are planted here for what is to come. GE, on the other hand, appears to be going through the process of finding himself isolated in a dying empire with no real friends. And worse yet, he has even less friends than he thought. He comes to find different parts of space once occupied by the Falcons are now occupied by dangerous people or breakaway states. And worse, he finds that the merchant caste, all but one, Merchant Jodine and her vault ship Gamma, have separated and formed their own kingdom, ruled by a merchant queen. Though mech production and other things continue, he also happens to have no additional warriors. In other words, the Falcons are doomed unless he does something, especially as they realize the wolves are very much potentially still at their throats. Cadet Alexis's story is a long and hard one to put into this review, but I did enjoy her character. She continues to feel isolated from the feeling of family she was promised. An orphaned freebirth, she was given the chance by Clan Ghostbear to join as a warrior, and did so hoping to find the meaning and security of family in her life. She does find that somewhat with her friends Sophia and Tomlinson. She also proves her worth, outdoing her rival Daniel and proving her vicious den mother, Star Captain Ivankova, wrong. Ivankova treats her with prejudice due to her origins, and sincerely despises her the entire time. She never lets this mask of disdain, in fact, really leave her. Star Colonel Hall ends up having to settle a dispute with people unwilling to move for a competition. He does so by accepting their trial of refusal, and they choose him to be their champion. He fights to the best of his ability against Star Captain Rand, someone who he doesn't dislike but finds zealous. He loses the trial and the people move, but they are happy he stood by his word, despite not supporting their cause. To be clear, the trial was 1 mech versus 4 opposition. It now starts to get to the point where it's talking about how the voting is bringing tension, and reports of riots on both sides across the Dominion are coming to everyone's attention, before it's found, by only the slimmest of margins, that the Dominion has voted to join the Star League. And this is discovered just as the cadet competition seems to be beginning. By the way, there's a cadet competition where foreign cadets are coming to compete against the local cadets in a large series of simulated and real wargames. Con Ji goes to Corel with one plan in mind after meeting a watch agent. He brings his entire Toolman with him, and the reason why is he intends to bid for their Sibcos, their cadets. They're trainees from Clan Ghostbear. The reason for this is simple. It's the last thing he can't fix, and the source of all of his problems. They have a few cadets of age coming through the Falcons, and he needs Mechwarriors, good ones, to pilot the mechs that he is still able to manufacture. He also needs to completely retrain the Falcons, and opts to do away with their traditional fighting style and Mongol doctrine, for a radical new approach to warfare, at least for them, tailoring to hit his opposition where they least expected. Where the cadets are stationed and where they are having their competition is Corel. The homegrown cadets on Corel are in a dead heat with their guests before the Falcons arrive and the trial is called. Star Colonel Hall rejects the call for a trial, making it clear that the cadets are more valuable than honor before GE sweetens the pot, offering the last merchant ship in his empire, the Gamma, as a prize should the Ghost Bears win. Measuring the odds, Hall takes the bet and seals the fate for the rest of the story. Without going into the full detail, Hall loses, and it's a disaster. He loses because he assumes the Falcons would use their Mongol tactics and lightly armed faster mechs. The opposite occurs, so his tailored forces are undone, despite several rallies, though it does end with a duel between himself and Con Ji, who he was unaware is the Con of Jade Falcon. Hall is a man of honor and honors his word, though his personal shame and grief over the loss are very palpable. The cadets rebel, but it doesn't matter, as they are traded away to Jade Falcon regardless. Many of them are bitter and disgruntled that they were stolen away from their new family, or traded away without consent. Alexis and her friends, despite their best efforts, find themselves in the Falcons, but so many Falcons now come from Clan Ghostbear that the Falcons decide to import the idea of the family, and they do everything they can to make the newcomers feel welcome, and assure them that they have joined a new Jade Falcon, and not simply one comprised of monsters and psychopaths. I knew something had to set off the conditions in the Dominion for the upcoming sourcebook, and at the end, Ilclan Alaric Ward rejects the Ghost Bear's bid to join the Star League, stating he expects unanimous support, or near unanimous support to do so. This results in many hardliners and reactionaries who voted to join to begin to lose their minds, viewing anyone who voted to not join as traitors. Hall voted to not join, but accepted the results. He is confronted by Allison Rand. He tries to calm the situation as he tries to write his report. She orders him to betray their word and honor and attack the Falcons for the cadets. He refuses. She declares him a traitor and shoots him dead in his office, taking command by force, attacking the Falcons in futility before setting off the beginnings of a civil war in the Dominion, and attempting to destroy the civilian government later on. I have to say, I found this part to be very sad, as one would expect for it to be. I really very much enjoyed Colonel Hall. I had a feeling that he wasn't going to see the other side of this novel. There was nothing that was a particularly strong indicator, just a bit of my intuition that that was the case. Being murdered by his second-in-command was not a very flattering way for him to go, and this does show that in Dominions Divided, it is going to very much have a severe internal confrontation in the Ghostbear Dominion. It's also worth noting that this process of violence seems to be appearing independently in other regions of the Dominion. The Ghostbears have begun a civil war. I can't help but think that Alaric knew this would happen. He doesn't need the Ghostbear Dominion, he needs Clan Ghostbear. And the reactionaries will serve his interests more than those who might express doubt. I really enjoyed this book, which surprised me. In general, I don't actually like clanners as characters. I find them to be very grating to read. And certainly there are portions of these characters that I am not happy with as a result of their clan origin, but overall most of them won me over, at least by being interesting characters. I felt the most for Hall, as he tried to do what was right for the most part, and failed his people near the end. His death at the hands of Rand was sad, dishonorable, and dare I say, Desgra. The events were engaging, and it was fascinating to see Ghost Bear Society tear itself apart over such a controversial vote. Alaric appears to want all or nothing when it comes to his allies, and I can't help but feel that this should result in his empire failing sooner rather than later, though I get the feeling that won't be in the cards. I should also add, it's hard to tell which this book is more of, a Ghost Bear story or a Jade Falcon story. If we're talking about who won, the Falcons won. They won decisively, and now the Ghost Bears are descending upon themselves. It's a really sad day to be a Ghost Bear. But that is it for the book review. I give you a strong recommendation. There's tons I didn't get to cover. Go read it for yourselves. There is going to be a link in the description below to buy this book if you are happy with this. But I really do recommend go out and grab this book. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. There's also a YouTube member program to support this channel as well, and I appreciate the support from members immensely. With that, I will catch all of you in the comments section below.